working down the line.
Hello and good morning from the Heartland. I just want to thank everyone for joining me on my first official Heartland Heritage channel. Basically, we'll be exploring not just the archaeological and cultural heritage of the Midwest, but also the United States and abroad as well. I wanted to talk to you guys. When I thought about the next episode, or my first official episode, I thought, well, you know what, I'll just go ahead and do General Order 11. I briefly brushed on it in the last episode, and I appreciate your guys' feedback. It was great to hear that you guys were interested. I actually didn't, do a horrible job at the video. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do General Order 11. That'll work, because I kind of glazed over it. But as I thought more about it last night when I was at work, I was like, General Order 11, it's great and all. It really is. With but at the same time, it's such a small piece of a grander puzzle, I guess. Or I just wanted to. I could give you dates. I can give you names. I could give you, famous people that were listed for that General Order 11. But I was thinking to myself, well, that's kind of like a historical report, and that's grand and all, but how is that tied in with archaeology and anthropology? And the way I was presenting it, it really wasn't. Yeah, it was historical and there was some fact in it, but I just didn't like the way I had presented it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just not going to cover General Order 11. And instead, I was going to kind of round off the rest of the border war from an archaeological and anthropological perspective. With the 150th anniversary of the border war happening several years ago, Missouri and Kansans were actually approached with how do you celebrate something like that, or recognize it, I guess it would be. Do you celebrate it? Is it something that you just get facts from just to make sure you have everything? I guess that what I was looking at it when this came across was, and this doesn't have to be about just the border war, it could be any area of conflict across borders, I guess, of where people were part of it. But do you just do the fact for fact? Try to find out as much information as you can, and then move on. Do you get as much information as you can, like the fact for fact, but also add on a emotional or compassionate aspect to that fact for fact? Maybe that doesn't work either. Maybe you just go and get the fact for fact, and then just turn it into a positive spin. Learn from our past mistakes so we don't end up repeating them in the future. So I was thinking, which one would I do, being from Missouri, part of growing up here with the border wars and the experiences and the exposure I've had to the history and the culture here. And I think in the end, I thought all three. They all three have very important purposes within archaeology and anthropology. Fact for fact, yes, you need to know everything. The more information you have, the more you can create a more vibrant history, and the more you can learn from it. So that's great. But a fact for fact can also kind of look like a non-emotional, very cold approach. Fact for fact. There we go. Fact for fact. We're done. Then you got the compassionate side. Do we, as our ancestors, modern day, today's people, do we recognize our ancestors and say, what we did, or what our ancestors did, was horrendous, was awful, was terrible, was the murder, it was just disgusting? Recognize it, talk about it with an open dialogue with anybody who's interested, and then go from there and try to build a more rounded history of what happened here. And also in the third one, put a positive spin on it. There was war here, but there was a lot of good things that happened here too. But of course, we don't concentrate necessarily on the good things, we always concentrate on the bad. So I think you need all three. That's what you need. You need all three of those to do a effective job, I think. Well, I guess effective is a bad way, but just to get a more rounded understanding of what happened here. Now, excuse me. An example for that fact for fact, and the reason I have a problem with it. Fact for fact, an example is, let's say I go on an archaeological dig in France. We find a Allied trench, and while we're excavating, we find human remains. Will view the fact for fact as, aha, We have found a skeleton. Find out everything you can on it, tag it, bag it, and go on to the next one. Boom, 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 done. That's how I would view a fact for fact. Just trying to get the facts. That's all we need to worry about, nothing else. I like the emotional approach. We got the fact for fact. This is a human being, or was a human being, a soldier, a one who sacrificed his life, or hers, depending on where you're at, and went through absolute hell, both physically and mentally, psychologically, to defend what they believed was right. That kind of connection brings out more questions, you know, and it doesn't have to even be war. I mean, if you look at it here in the Missouri border war, people love to talk about the guerrillas and the bushwhackers and the jayhawkers and what they did to each other, but no one really pays attention. What about the common people, everyday man, woman, and child? General Order 11, a brief thing, is they kicked farmers and people, United States citizens, out of 4 counties and took them away from their homes. They lost everything. What about their stories? What about their stories of survival? What about their stories of strength and willpower? And put a positive spin on it with that strength and willpower to carry on and survive and sometimes grow. So I think those stories are extremely important. I think when you do archaeology here in the border war, or down here in Missouri and Kansas, and there's starting to be more excavations and stuff done, I think, though, while it's grand, you can study what happened historically between the bushwhackers and the jayhawkers. I think to get a full understanding, you need to go and understand the common person and what they went through. So that's why I think you need all 3. You need all the facts. You need all the facts with an emotional connection to the people and find out all they went through and all the suffering and all the joy and the pain that came along with it. And then in the end, put a spin on it. Put a spin on it. The stories, the friendships, the funny jokes that were told, anything you could find that you could put a positive spin on war. Because to be honest, war is an attractive thing, unfortunately, especially when it comes to history. I don't know about how it is where you guys are from, but here in the United States, for as young as a country as we are, we've been through a lot of wars, and war is attractive. We even have a military history channel dedicated to nothing but war and military. That's not saying it's bad, but we're just fascinated by it. And because we're fascinated by it, we kind of ignore the common person. And that's just a real pity. And I think to get a full understanding of what has been done in the past, you need to have everything covered. Not just the war, but the people in it as well, the economy, everything. And that's where the archaeology and the anthropology comes in, to ask those questions. How did the economy get affected? How did the people get affected? How was nutrition? Did they start starving because of the lack of food? Did they start having, what about psychological aspects? I mean, this is guerrilla warfare. Every day was a day of, we're happy just to be alive. So I guess in the end of my little speech, I'll get off my soapbox, but I have a question for you, and I would really love to get some feedback from you guys. I love talking to people, and I love to hear viewpoints from all over. So it's not just the border war, but just any area of conflict across the border where people are affected, and that could be you guys. But what I want to know is, where do you think it should be done? Do you think you should be the fact for fact? Do you think there should be emotion involved in it? Some recognition of what had happened in the past, and that, yes, we agree this stuff has happened, and, have an open dialogue to try to get a better understanding? Or do you do the positive spin on it? Do you celebrate them? Even though they might have done something that was completely horrible, they're still your ancestors. Do you celebrate them? Do you still honor them? I mean, over here in Missouri, there's a lot of people who still honor the bushwhackers. Not all of them, but a majority of them. A lot of them were considered heroes. I mean, heck, Frank and Jesse James were outlaws and that were bushwhackers, and they were murderers. But after the Civil War, they survived as well as they did because the people of Missouri protected them. They saw him as a American version of Robin Hood, regardless of his actions. So I guess that's how I want to look at it. How would you guys, and I say guys, that's a slang term here in the U.S. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. Forgive me if you guys are taking that the wrong way. But how would you all approach that? How do you approach your past when it comes to those areas of conflict? What do you think needs to be done to make sure everything is covered and all the stories told and complete? So I'll leave you with that. I'm not, like I said, I'll have I'm not going to leave you hanging on General Order 11. There'll be a link down below that will go to a wonderful website by the Missouri Civil War Organization that talks about General Order 11. So you guys can read up on that if you'd like. But yeah, just look it over. Think about it. Write to me. I'd be love to see your comments, and we can get back on this and discuss it a little bit more later. I got plenty of other things I want to talk to you all about that I'm very excited about. So I guess until then, thank you so much for watching my video. I'm not that great at it right now. I'm still learning, but I promise I'll be getting better. But thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you all. So until then, peace.